going to be discussing what we think was happening in that image of him on the floor, hovering over what appears to be a woman. Very strange. Very strange. He's not Prince anymore, and this is part of the reason why. What do you think was happening in this picture? Prince Andrew. This is purported to be image from Jeffrey. What was happening on Jeffrey's Island? A lot of people have made the comment that it looks like he was doing some kind of a first aid course, but unfortunately, I don't think he was learning how to help people. Definitely not. Shall we have a listen to Ben Shapiro? Because Ben Shapiro is very dismissive of the notion that Jeffrey Epstein was helping any foreign government or any government at all. So let's have a little listen to Ben Shapiro, see what he thinks of all this. Go on, Ben.
The Epstein files. There are none, apparently.
It's all
Again,
conspiracy
a lot of
theory.
people were shocked by this. I'm less shocked by this than some. The reason being, whenever there's this level of speculation without any sort of supporting evidence, it's not a shock to me when all that sort of falls apart. What does this demonstrate? Well, it demonstrates that once a conspiracy theory gets going, it becomes utterly unfalsifiable. Utterly unfalsifiable. And no matter how much evidence is provided, and even if the people you trust are put in charge, it's still even more unfalsifiable. So listen, it's justifiable for people like J.D. Vance, who was the vice presidential candidate at the time before the election, to call for the release of an Epstein list because, frankly, people thought there was an Epstein list. However, the evidence suggested there really was not an Epstein list if you were watching this case with any sort of eagle eye. The problem is that when you feed this, at a certain point, it's going to blow back on you when it turns out that you open Al Capone's vault, like Geraldo Rivera, and there's nothing there, which is actually what seems to have happened right here. If your expectations of a gigantic conspiracy don't come true and you have no counter evidence, none except for your speculation, I'm sorry, but that's on you. If you want to provide me the actual, not just your speculation, not just your sort of suggestions.
Ben Shapiro also didn't want an investigation into the JFK assassination for some reason. He said it doesn't matter. It's not important who shot the president. And he's really dismissing the Epstein conspiracy theory, as he calls it.
Not your wild, outlandish theories, speciously based on nothing. Right? And all of that is open. But I'm sorry, when you put Kash Patel and Dan Bongino in charge of the FBI, and we put Pam Bondi in charge of the DOJ, and then it turns out that there's nothing there, I don't know what more you expect. What do you think? They're all part of the conspiracy? And the answer is, of course, yes. That is always the next step. Of course, you can always go down the next conspiratorial rabbit hole. That's the beauty of conspiratorial rabbit holes. When one of them gets debunked, you just dive right into the next conspiratorial rabbit hole, and they all tie together in a gigantic ball of spaghetti that is a global unifying world theory that in the end is about some sort of conspiratorial elite controlling your life. Or maybe, facts and evidence should be necessary when you make outsized allegation. I'm just going to point out for the 1000th time here, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel were both suspicious of the Epstein list stuff. They were both into the theorizing, and then they saw the evidence, and like the honest people they are, they came to a conclusion about that evidence. Period. You may not come to that same conclusion, but now you should be forced to provide your evidence before you call people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, and by the way, the President of the United States, liars on this matter. So why is there such resistance? You know, once the conspiracy is essentially exploded by people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and President Trump and Pam Bondi and all the rest, once that happens, why do people double down? And the question has to be answered by looking at the mentality of people who do the doubling down. Again, you can believe this stuff or speculate about this stuff, but once the evidence comes out, that's a different class of people who've decided to double, triple, quadruple down. It's a worldview. And that worldview basically says that there's always an elite that is controlling the events in your life. And those elites are able to get away with literally anything. They have almost godlike powers over your life. And so every time it turns out that a conspiracy theory is untrue, It undermines your case unless you make the case that actually the elites got away with it again, in which case you are strengthening your case. Actually, a conspiracy debunked in many cases for these folks actually strengthens their broader great conspiracy theory, which is that there is a group of small elites who are running every aspect of your life and they get away with everything. And when they get away with this one, it actually makes you more passionate about the fact that they got away with it, as opposed to maybe taking a look at your core theory, which is, no, maybe there isn't this like small group of elite who's controlling every aspect of your life. The question is, why double down on theories that are already debunked? Why double down on theories that are widely derided as dumb? Why double down on theories that have no evidence to them? And the answer is, those are precisely the theories you must double down on. You must. Because if there is a group of unanswerable, unpunishable elites, it excuses all of your day-to-day life. It excuses your activities. It excuses your failures. It excuses why you're so angry at, quote unquote, the system. And it requires no actual action from you other than railing at the moon.
So Ben Shapiro there being quite dismissive of conspiracy theories and saying that people use this as an excuse for why their life is not going well because there's a small group of people, an elite, who control everything. And he's been quite dismissive of that. Ben Shapiro is on the right. A lot of right-wing speakers have been accused of being conspiracy theorists in the past few years. With everything that happened with the pandemic and the conspiracy theories that surrounded that, it seemed to be very much the people on the right who were critical of all the measures, and that was a worldwide lockdown that was implemented, a worldwide medicine that was distributed. So all the people on the right who are very concerned with social liberty or individual liberty and the rights of the individual, they kicked back against those measures. There was very few people on the left that questioned any of the measures that were taken. So being a conspiracy theorist has become synonymous with being part of the right wing, the alt-right, and that's the realm in which Ben Shapiro inhabits, but he is being very dismissive of this conspiracy theory, the idea that Prince Andrew was on Epstein Island because Jeffrey Epstein was compromising wealthy, powerful individuals like Andrew, like apparently Professor Stephen Hawking, and all the other names that have emerged from the flight logs. And Trump is heavily involved. Is it because Shapiro is a diehard Trump supporter that he's not having any of it and he doesn't want Trump to have his reputation tarnished by being involved in the Epstein files? Or is it more than that? Prince Andrew has nothing left to lose. He's not even a prince anymore, and he's not a ruling politician. He has got no power. The royal family don't even really have any power, but he's rich. He's from the British royal family. But is he just one of many that were on Epstein Island? Here's Tucker Carlson, and Shapiro mentioned him. He's got a different view.
Epstein was murdered in prison. Okay. I know a lot about it.
I know a lot
just
about it.
throwing that out there.
I do.
Epstein was murdered in prison.
Well, they put him with a cellmate that was kind of a crazy, like, former police officer, right?
Yeah, a former police officer killed a number of drug dealers. I'm not saying that guy did it, but I'm saying, well, I asked Bureau of Prisons because I learned all this stuff about it because I know Epstein's brother, Mark, well. And I never expected to go down this rabbit hole at all. The guy called me like a week after his brother was killed.
Mark did?
Yeah, and so, yeah, I was literally sitting in my backyard in Maine, and he called me, and I don't know how he got my cell, and it ended up this years-long thing. It's not interesting, and I won't bore you with it, but the bottom line is Jeff Epstein was murdered in federal lockup in Manhattan in the secure unit. I think there were only 16 men on the unit, and I think only 14 there that night. I may have that slightly wrong, but it's very small, and it's the most secure federal lockup in the United States, and he got murdered in it. So that raises all kinds of obvious questions, like who has the power to do that? So that's a big deal. And then the attorney general at the time helped cover it up. And I know him. And Bill Barr. So I say that, and he's like, oh, I'm going to sue you. And I said, go ahead and sue me. I hope you will. And what's the answer? Like, why don't you answer? He never will. Well, it turns out, and this does make you crazy, that his father, Donald Barr, is the guy who started Epstein's career, who both gave him his first job, for which he was not qualified, and then got him his second job at Bear Stearns, for which he was definitely unqualified. What is that? Former CIA guy, OSS guy. But anyway, the point is that question of how an American citizen, kid toucher or not, could get murdered in federal lockup in our biggest city. Like, holy shit, that should scare everybody. And then the Attorney General of the United States is covering it up. He admitted, this is the Attorney General, when Epstein was murdered, said, I told everyone around me, we need to make sure the country believes this was a suicide. It's like, you haven't even done a freaking investigation. You're the chief law enforcement officer, and you're telling me the outcome before you even look into it?
How do you know that?
Because he admitted it in his autobiography. And so I'm not guessing at any of this stuff, okay? So I call Bureau of Prisons, and I'm like, I want the names of the inmates who are serving on this block, because clearly nobody got in or out of the block. It's
Right. Well, it also was a question to our prison system. It's like, how would you not know? Like, obviously, this is the guy you have to protect.
They did it on purpose, and he was murdered clearly by another inmate. And there is so much. I mean, I did like an hour on this. Anyone interested can look it up, but I'm not a conspiracy nut at all. I've been a journalist my whole life. I've often been wrong, but I've always been attentive to what I believe the facts to be. I think it really matters whether you're accurate, and I've tried to be. So it was not a perfect storm of screw-ups. They never did the investigation into how this guy died. They redressed him in clothes that he wasn't wearing when he died for pictures in the hospital infirmary. All the records of what happened to his body are gone. And critically, we cannot get, and I tried directly by calling the Attorney General's office. I want a list of the names of the inmates. It's publicly available. They're convicted felons, dude. Yeah. This is not secret information, it's not national security information. Why can't you tell me that? They allowed him to be murdered in federal lockup. So leave all the pedo island stuff out of it. And just ask yourself, how can we continue to live in a country where a high-profile inmate can be murdered in our prison system by who's powerful enough to do that?
Right.
And so these are not only legitimate questions, they're essential questions. And like, we're mad at the people asking them?
That's the weirdest thing.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Sorry about the language. And the cameras weren't on. There's so much that doesn't add up about the night Jeffrey Epstein lost his life via unexpected suicide. What about the Young Turks? What's their take on it?
So let's get to some of the headlines that were featured over at DropSite News, because they poured over the Ehud Barak emails to Epstein, which of course were leaked as part of a hack. They also
Ehud Barak, former Israeli Prime Minister,
reported on the various documents and emails that were released by both Democrats and Republicans in the House Oversight Committee. So with that in mind, I mean, this is based on hard evidence. They were able to report the following stories. Epstein helped broker an Israeli security agreement with Mongolia. Interesting. Epstein helped Israel build a back channel to Russia during the Syrian civil war. That's not all. Epstein helped Israel sell a surveillance state to the Ivory Coast.
Okay, here is the suggestion that Jeffrey Epstein was working for Israel. He was working with Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, also died in suspicious circumstances. He fell off his boat, and it's unexplained whether it was a suicide, whether it was an accident, or was it something more serious or more sinister. He is a very highly decorated hero in Israel. I believe he is buried in Israel when they recovered the body. Originally from Hungary, but he worked for Israel. He was given awards for his service to the state of Israel. Would his daughter carry on in the same line of work? Would her partner, Jeffrey Epstein, do the same thing? Is it an ideological thing? Are these people motivated by power, or is it ideology, or do they just want control? The thing with the very rich, and the reason why you get these elites involved in such sordid activity, if you are very rich and powerful, you cannot be bought, you cannot be bribed. You've got all the money that you want. The only control someone can exert over you is to compromise you, to blackmail you, film you doing something, and then blackmail you with the truth. And I do wonder how AI and the advancement of deepfakes, how that will affect this. Because when we get to the stage where a deepfake is indistinguishable from actual footage, won't we have the perfect excuse for any kind of photographic video evidence of someone doing whatever? You'll be able to say, oh no, it's a deep fake, that wasn't me, prove I'm wrong. Which is interesting, isn't it? They say the camera lies, but now we've got to the stage where we can make a lying camera. So will video evidence no longer be able to threaten these people? Am I right about that? Is that going to be the way it goes? That video evidence will no longer be concrete because you can just say, well, it's clearly a deep fake. I've been framed. What would be concrete evidence? I know in religion, the teachings are about eyewitnesses and how many eyewitnesses it takes to convict someone. But even an eyewitness can be incorrect. We can misremember what we think we've seen. The right interrogation can ask leading questions, and you can implant a memory in someone's mind that was not real, that did not happen. When they've showed videos of a car crash to participants in an experiment, when they ask the question, did you see the broken glass? People will answer yes, even if there was no broken glass, because they are presuming that the questioner knows the truth. Graham is saying in the chat, have you ever thought of becoming a Mokolmizer? I don't know what that means. I will have to look that up. And someone else is asking, where is Sarah? Sarah's not far away. So the future of blackmail. I know it's a bit of a bleak subject, but in a way, will it make the idea of compromising people obsolete? Will there no longer be this power to be gained by putting people in compromising situations with the worst possible crimes imaginable? I mean, why do these people, again, if you're a very rich, powerful person, is it the case that you cannot be bribed, you cannot be bought, And when you can get anything you want, have anything you want, have anyone that you want, is that why we get this sick perversion? Does normal relationships become not enough for these people? Is that why they're drawn to the horrible practices that went on in Epstein Island? And I mean, I'm sure you've seen the Disney classic Pinocchio, where the villain is capturing young boys and taking them to Treasure Island. And the famous line where he says, "They don't come back as boys," and they're turning them into donkeys. And this is some kind of symbolic representation of horrible things happening to children. Zach Boy 241 is saying, "My cousin is in a coma and 2 people passed away." I'm sorry to hear that, Zach Boy. Very sorry to hear that. And we've got Habilk is watching us from Turkey. Well, merhaba to you, and tashakur for watching. We do like to build up an international audience. Excuse me. We're going out quite late tonight on a Saturday night, discussing Epstein and Andrew and all manner of things in between. I was going to get another picture up there for you so we can decide. What do you think is happening in this picture? And they've blurred the image out of that person. It looks like a woman. Looks to be over the age, a woman, not a child. But being anywhere on Epstein Island is not a good look, is it? And I've mentioned before about Ghislaine Maxwell and her obsession with the high seas. And she did a TED talk where she was sort of romancing the idea of the ocean and being on the high seas, and mentioning the fact that when you're in international waters, no law actually applies. And is that, now watching that later on, you think, well, is that why they went to this island where you're in no man's land and there's no law to be applied? But of course, natural law applies everywhere. We all have that innate instinct of what is right and wrong, and we are disgusted by the likes of Epstein. And if Prince Andrew went to Epstein Island, Prince Andrew also. Here's the shot from another angle. It doesn't seem to want to do it. Yeah, one more picture. Strange man, Andrew. That's the king's younger brother, but he's no longer a royal. Hablik is saying, "Where are you from?" Well, I live in England. My family come from Ireland, and I'm a citizen of the world. But I don't think I have any blue blood. Where did the royal family come from? Have we done a DNA test on these guys? Prince Philip, the father of Andrew, was born in Greece, I think Corfu, and would be of German origin. And I think he was getting to know Queen Elizabeth when she was quite young. I can't remember exactly, but was he sending her love letters when she was 13, 14, and he was 18 or 19. I'll have to look up the exact ages. They were all, it was all a bit different back then. And it's hard to judge the olden days by modern standards, but you could say that's a little bit suspect. And they all tend to marry their cousins as well, don't they? The royal families, they keep the blue blood within the family. Will Andrew be taken to court to give evidence? I doubt it very much. Doubt it very much. Ladies and gents, it's a quick one tonight. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. What was Andrew doing in that picture? It's been Lessons for Life.